Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless Official 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Jill Abbott had delivered plenty of verbal grenades in her lifetime, but nothing, and no one, was prepared for the nuclear blast she unleashed when she strode into the room, eyes blazing, voice razor-sharp, and dropped the 7 words that would alter the trajectory of Sally Spectra and Billy Abbott's lives forever. I won't let this happen again, ever. That was it. 7 words. 7 deceptively simple, terrifyingly precise words that hit like a hammer to the chest and stole the very oxygen from the air. Sally froze where she stood, her breath hitching, her throat tightening like someone had wrapped an iron band around it. Billy, normally a master at smoothing chaos with charm, couldn't summon even a flicker of bravado. Panic surged through him, hot and fast, pulsing behind his eyes as Jill's meaning sank in deeper and deeper with every passing second. Jill wasn't here to talk. She wasn't here to negotiate. She was here to end this, whatever this was, before it could even begin to root itself into the ground of their future. And she meant every syllable of those 7 words. They weren't a threat. They weren't even a warning. They were a promise. A vow forged from years of watching her son crash, burn, heal, rebuild, fall again, get up again, only to shatter once more. And Jill wasn't about to let Billy be pulled into another emotional catastrophe, not when she still carried the guilt of every time she'd looked the other way or chalked his heartbreaks up to life experience. Not when she still remembered the quiet sobs he thought she never heard. Not when she'd watched him claw his way back from the brink more times than she could count. Billy's breathing turned shallow. Sally's lip trembled. And Jill, unmovable, untouchable, unshakably resolute, stood with the gravity of a mother who'd finally decided enough was enough. Sally tried to speak. She opened her mouth, her voice catching somewhere in the back of her throat, trapped beneath the weight of Jill's accusation. Jill, this isn't. But Jill cut her off with a sharp flick of her hand, the gesture slicing through the conversation like a blade. She wasn't here to hear excuses or justifications or carefully crafted explanations that made everything look neater than it was. She wasn't here to discuss Billy's past, Sally's past, or the possibility of a future between them. She was here because she'd seen the signs, she knew this crossroads, this dangerous chemistry, this subtle tilt toward disaster, for what it was. The start of another cycle. And Jill Abbott refused to let history repeat itself. Billy took a hesitant step forward, but even he couldn't bring himself to fully challenge her, because somewhere deep inside, beneath the panic, beneath the defensiveness, beneath the impulse to push back, he knew she was speaking from a place he'd never been able to escape, his own patterns, the emotional traps he lay for himself without even realizing it. But Jill didn't just stare at Billy. She pinned Sally too, her gaze unwavering, almost brutal. I won't let this happen again, ever. Her voice reverberated through the room, echoing like an edict, a verdict, a sentence handed down before trial. And as far as Jill was concerned, there was nothing to deliberate. She'd seen Sally's heartache, her ambition, her survival instincts masquerading as vulnerability, and she didn't doubt Sally had genuine feelings. What she doubted was that Sally could walk into Billy's life without pulling him back into the emotional quicksand he always struggled to escape. Sally's pulse hammered in her ears. Her hands, normally so steady, so capable, felt cold, numb, drained of their strength. Because she knew Jill wasn't simply warning her away from Billy. She was telling her that whatever fragile hope had been shimmering between them had just been crushed under the heel of Jill Abbott's determination. Billy could feel the room tilting. His mother's voice, those 7 words, were like a ghost of every fear he'd tried to outrun. That he wasn't strong enough. That he couldn't make his own choices. That he was doomed to repeat the same mistakes until someone stepped in to save him from himself. Panic clawed at him. He wanted to scream that she was wrong. That he was different now. That Sally wasn't just another detour on the road to another meltdown. But the truth shivered beneath his bravado, he didn't know. He didn't know. And Jill did, because she had seen every version of him, even the ones he tried hardest to bury. Mom, he managed, his voice cracking in a way he hated, a way that made him sound 8 years old instead of a grown man carving out a life he believed he was finally in control of. But Jill's jaw tightened. If anything, the crack in his voice only strengthened her resolve. Sally's knees felt weak, like they might buckle under the pressure of Jill's words. She tried again. Jill, I'm not trying to hurt Billy. The words came out small, stripped of the boldness that normally coated her in armor. But Jill's eyes flashed, not with cruelty but with a ferocious protectiveness that could burn down cities if it meant saving her son. Intentions don't matter, Jill said sharply. Outcomes do. And that was the line that gutted Sally completely. Because she couldn't argue with it. Not after everything she'd been through. Not after losing her baby. Not after clawing her way through loss, heartbreak, survival, ambition, reinvention. Her life was a map drawn in the ink of things she never intended but still caused. And Billy. Billy was the one person she didn't want to destroy by accident. The realization sliced through her like a knife. Billy raked a trembling hand through his hair. You don't get to decide this for me, he shot back, but even he could hear the wavering undercurrent of desperation. Jill didn't flinch. I won't let this happen again, ever. She repeated the sentence, slower this time, each word like a gavel hitting just a little harder. Billy felt the panic rising, drowning him. He wasn't just worried about his mother interfering. He was terrified she was right. Terrified that whatever was building with Sally was fragile enough to be crushed with one push. Terrified that he wasn't strong enough to be what Sally needed. Terrified that the cycle would repeat, and Jill, despite how harsh she sounded, was actually trying to save him from a heartbreak he might not survive this time. Sally's eyes shimmered, but she refused to cry. Not here. Not in front of Jill. Not in front of Billy. Her voice trembled anyway. I care about him, she said, barely above a whisper. Jill's gaze didn't soften. Not even for a second. Love, Jill said coldly, is not enough. Not for him. Not after everything. Sally felt her chest tighten, her lungs refusing to expand, like every breath had to fight its way through barbed wire. Because she knew Jill wasn't dismissing her feelings, she was dismissing Sally's worthiness. And that cut deeper than any insult. Billy looked between them, torn, shaken, unraveling. He reached for Sally without fully realizing it, his hand hovering like he was afraid to touch her, afraid touching her would confirm Jill's fears, or his own. Sally stepped back, the movement instinctive, wounded, terrified of making everything worse. That step back felt like a lifetime. Billy's heart splintered. Jill's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes, something like relief, something like vindication. Mom, Billy said, louder this time, his voice cracking but determined, you're wrong about her. Jill crossed her arms. I'm not talking about her, she said icily. I'm talking about you. Her words hit him harder than the original 7. Because she was right. She wasn't afraid of Sally breaking him. She was afraid of Billy breaking himself again, of him clinging to someone because the chaos felt familiar. Of him drowning in someone else's wounds because fixing other people always felt easier than fixing himself. Sally felt the room constrict around her. Jill's 7 words echoed through her bones, each repetition louder than the last. I won't let this happen again, ever. It didn't matter what Jill thought Sally might do to Billy. It didn't matter whether Jill was right or wrong. What mattered, what Sally realized with horrifying clarity, was that Jill had already decided. The verdict had already been passed. And Sally didn't have the strength or the power to change Jill's mind. Not today. Maybe not ever. Billy stepped toward Sally again, desperation flickering across his features. Don't go, he whispered, barely audible. Sally's heart twisted painfully. She looked at him, not at Jill, not at the room, but at him. And in that single look, Billy saw everything he feared, affection, fear, resignation, and the quiet acceptance that this, whatever it was between them, had just been undermined before it even had the chance to breathe. Jill's 7 words had carved a fault line straight through them. Sally swallowed hard, her voice barely a thread. Billy, maybe she's right. The devastation that flashed in his eyes nearly broke her. She's not, he insisted, but it sounded like he was trying to convince himself. Jill didn't gloat. She didn't smile. She didn't soften. She simply stared at her son, heartbreak buried under layers of determination. I won't let this happen again, ever, she repeated one last time, each word sealing Sally and Billy's fate. And just like that, Sally turned away, her steps slow, her breath ragged, her future uncertain. Billy watched her go, his soul cracking in places he didn't know existed. Jill stood still, knowing she had done what she believed she had to do, even if it cost her son everything he wanted. Because Jill Abbott would rather be hated today than see Billy destroyed tomorrow. And those 7 words, I won't let this happen again, ever, echoed long after the room fell silent, leaving Sally shattered, Billy panicked, and the future forever changed. The silence that followed Sally's exit was not the quiet kind, it was suffocating, thick, and heavy, the kind of silence that carries aftershocks. Billy stood rooted to the spot, staring at the doorway she had disappeared through, every muscle in his body tight enough to snap. The room felt colder without her in it, like the heat had been sucked out the second she walked away. For a moment he didn't move. He didn't breathe. He just stood there in the debris of Jill's declaration, feeling his heart thud like a fist inside his ribs. Jill watched him, her face carved with the stony determination she thought she needed, but deep beneath it lay a tremor of something she didn't dare name. Guilt. Fear. The terrible awareness that she had just delivered a blow she couldn't take back. But as far as Jill was concerned, the cost of doing nothing would have been far worse. Billy dragged his hand down his face, his breath shuddering. Do you have any idea what you just did? His voice was low but shaking, each word clipped, as if speaking too loudly would make the wound larger. Jill didn't flinch. I protected you, she said simply, like it was the most obvious truth in the world. But Billy spun toward her, eyes blazing with hurt, anger, and something far more dangerous, betrayal. No, he snapped. You didn't protect me. You sabotaged me. You made a decision that wasn't yours to make. Jill's chin lifted, her posture stiffening. You weren't going to make one, she fired back. Not the right one. Not soon enough. Not before you got pulled into another spiral. Billy scoffed, but it wasn't amusement, it was disbelief, disappointment, devastation. You think you know me so well? You think I can't choose who I want to be with without you interfering? He stepped closer, pointing to the doorway Sally had just walked through. You think I'm that broken? Jill swallowed hard. Her voice softened, though only slightly. I think you're vulnerable in ways you don't want to admit. And Sally, she paused, searching for the right words, the ones least likely to wound. She found none. She's not what you need right now. She's not stable enough. And neither are you. Billy closed his eyes briefly, like her words physically hit him. When he opened them again, they were glossy with emotions he couldn't afford to show. You don't get to decide what I need, he said quietly. You don't get to decide who I care about, or who cares about me. Jill stepped toward him, her expression softening for the first time since she delivered the 7 words that shattered everything. Billy, sweetheart, I've watched you fall apart more times than I can count. I've watched you attach yourself to women who were hurting, because fixing them made you feel whole. I've watched you confuse chaos with passion, instability with connection. I've watched you repeat the same mistakes until you were drowning in them. She reached for his arm, but Billy pulled back before she could touch him. The rejection cut her deeper than she let on. And Sally, Jill continued, steadying her voice, is drowning. She's grieving. Her life is in pieces. And don't, Billy growled, his voice cracking. Don't make this about my past. Don't act like I can't tell the difference between helping someone and being with someone. But Jill didn't back down. You can't, she said bluntly. Not always. And if you go down that road with her, you're both going to get hurt. And this time, her voice finally faltered. This time, I don't think you'll come back the same. Billy felt the floor shift beneath him. He couldn't decide which hurt worse, Jill's lack of faith in him, or the fear that she might actually be right. But the place where reason usually lived inside him was a twisted mess right now. All he could think of was Sally's devastated face, the way she stepped back from him like she believed she was poison. The way her voice cracked when she said, "Maybe she's right." The way she walked away because she thought leaving was safer than trying. Billy pressed his fingertips to his forehead. "She needed someone to believe in her," he murmured. "And you made sure she knows it won't be me." Jill's expression tightened. "If she walks away because of what I said," she countered, "then she wasn't strong enough to stay. She wasn't stable enough to be with you. And that only proves my point." Billy exhaled sharply, disbelief etched across his features. "You think love is about stability? About checking boxes? About being enough on paper?" He shook his head. "You don't get it." Jill bristled. "I get more than you think." "No," Billy snapped, "you get scared. And when you get scared, you bulldoze." Jill froze. The truth of that pierced through her defenses, but she wouldn't let Billy see the impact. "I'd rather bulldoze than watch you fall into another disaster," she said quietly. Billy stepped closer, so close Jill could see the tremor in his jaw. "Then you're going to have to watch," he said. "Because I'm not letting you dictate my life." Jill's heart cracked. "Billy," but he lifted a hand, silencing her. "I'm going after her." Jill stiffened. "No, you're not." Billy let out a hollow laugh. "Try and stop me." He moved toward the door, brushing past her. But Jill's voice caught him mid-step. "Billy," she called, not sharp this time, but desperate. "Please. Don't go to her right now. Not like this. Not angry. Not wounded." Billy paused, his back still to her. "Right now," Jill continued, her voice trembling ever so slightly, "you're not thinking clearly. And neither is she. Give it a day. Let the dust settle. Then talk." Billy squeezed his eyes shut. Her plea made sense. But his heart, raw, fractured, frantic, didn't care. "If I wait," he whispered, "I'll lose her." Jill swallowed. "If she's meant for you," she said gently, "you won't." Billy turned slightly, just enough for her to see the torment etched across his face. "That's the thing," he said painfully. "I don't think anything good ever stays with me." Jill felt her breath catch. "Billy, that's not true." "Doesn't feel like it," he whispered. And then he walked out. The door clicked shut behind him. Jill stood frozen, one hand covering her mouth, her chest tightening as the weight of everything she'd said pressed down like a crushing tide. She told herself she had done the right thing. She told herself she had saved him. She told herself she had prevented yet another emotional disaster. But for the first time since delivering those 7 words, doubt seeped into her bones. Meanwhile, Sally sat in her car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles were white. Her eyes were red, her chest aching with the kind of pressure that made breathing feel like a chore. Jill's words, those sharp, unforgiving 7 words, kept replaying in her head like a cruel chant. "I won't let this happen again, ever." They echoed through her like a storm, shaking loose every insecurity, every fear, every lingering wound that had never fully healed. She pressed her forehead against the wheel. "Why did I think I could ever have something good?" she whispered. Her breath trembled. "Why did I think I deserved it?" The grief she had been keeping tightly bottled, months of loss, heartbreak, setbacks, self-doubt, rose like a tidal wave. And for the first time in a long time, Sally didn't fight it. She let the tears come, her body shaking with quiet sobs that tore something open inside her. But beneath the heartbreak was something else, something fierce, something burning, something she hadn't felt in months. Determination. Anger. Pain sharpened into resolve. "I'm not weak," she whispered. "I'm not unstable. And I'm not going to let Jill Abbott decide my worth." But even as the words left her lips, her confidence wavered. Billy had hesitated. That's what hurt most. Not Jill's judgment. Sally had been judged her entire life. It was Billy's reaction, the way he froze, unsure, pulled in two directions. The way he didn't fight right away. The way he didn't reach for her until she had already stepped back. That hesitation replayed in her mind like a slow-motion punch to the gut. Because hesitation wasn't rejection, but it wasn't commitment either. And Sally had lived most of her life in the space between those two things. It was a space that broke her every time. Back inside, Jill slumped onto the couch, her composure cracking at last. She covered her face with both hands, the weight of what she'd done sinking in. She knew she might have pushed too far. She knew she might have driven a wedge between them that